somewhere out there, I think maybe, Rabbi Bradley Levenberg. We are so happy that you're here. He's going to give an invocation and also lead us in the pledge of the flag. So would everyone please rise.
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, the Jewish people currently find ourselves in the final throes of the celebration of Passover, in which we recall the exodus of the Israelites from slavery to freedom. The question that has been asked by rabbis and scholars for centuries is it freedom from or freedom to? Freedom from slavery, from tyranny, from oppression and repression. Freedom to chart our course, develop a just society, and care for those who are marginalized amongst us. It's actually the symbiosis of the two. For as we all know, what is the value of freedom if we do not govern with justice, compassion, and kindness? It is a prayer in our tradition, the blessing of the priests, the blessing of the Kohanim that can be found in the book of Numbers that I recite now on your behalf. May God bless and keep you. May your decisions reflect a close relationship with God. May our journey forward together be one of peace, justice, and truth, and may God bless that journey. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you all.
And the temple is at 4645 Dupree Drive in Atlanta, is that correct?
56.
I was a mailman. I always left somebody's mail at the wrong address, but we're awful glad that you're here.
The wonderful checks that you left in our mailbox.
You guys are pretty funny. Thank you. Agenda changes, we have a couple. Actually, let's see if I can get this right. Item 4B and 4C on the agenda will be tabled to June the 2nd. Item 6E and F will be tabled. 6E will be tabled until May the 5th. 6F will be tabled till June the 2nd. Okay. We have a proclamation that Mr. Ron Fennell will read. A proclamation in recognition of Respect for Law Enforcement Day, May the 2nd. Is there anyone here to accept that proclamation?
Betty Turley is usually here. Is she in the room?
Go ahead and read it, and we'll send it to her.
I'll read it, and we'll make sure to present it to the Smyrna Optimist at the proper time. Thank you. A proclamation by the mayor in the city of Smyrna, respect for law. Whereas crime and its effect upon the lives and property of Smyrna and Cobb County citizens is of the utmost concern to the members of the Smyrna Optimist Club, and crime undermines and erodes the moral and economic strengths of our communities, and whereas the Smyrna Optimist Club Incorporated has for many years recognized that public awareness and determination to maintain the faith in the preservation of law and order and the appreciation of law enforcement officers in their role in preserving social order and everyone's responsibility, and whereas the Smyrna Optimist Club and its members annually recognize and honor the men and women of the Smyrna Police Department and others in law enforcement who put their lives on the line daily to safeguard and protect the citizens of this community, to reduce the crime in the area, and to make the city of Smyrna a better and safer place to live, work, and play. And whereas the Smyrna Optimist Club and its members continue to sponsor and support programs aimed at combating crime and disrespect for the law through the year, combating crime and disrespect. I had to make sure to get that right. Throughout the with year-round efforts, now therefore I, A. Max Bacon, Jr., Mayor, City of Smyrna, do hereby proclaim May 2nd, 2014 as Respect for Law Day, and ask all citizens of Smyrna, and the surrounding area to join with the Smyrna Optimists in carrying the message of respect for law to everyone, and by example exercise responsible citizenship. And witness hereof, I set unto my hand and caused the seal of the city to be affixed this 21st day of April in the year of our Lord 2014. A. Max Bacon, Mayor.
And we will get that to Betty Turtis for
Get
the
that
Optimist
to the
Club.
Optimist Club on Friday. Thank you, sir.
We also have item B under the mayor's report is Citizens Police Academy graduating class ceremony and presentation of certificates. Chief Lee, if you'll come forward, this is the second graduating class, is that correct? Yes, sir. And these are local residents that have gone through a rigorous training process.
It's been a lively group. At this time, I am going to call up Captain Leonard to give a brief overview. I do want to point out Captain Leonard has put this program together at the very beginning. When I first brought this up during the senior command staff meeting, he jumped at this. I didn't have to wait to volunteer somebody. He grabbed hold of it, and he's done such a great job with it. But I'm going to have Captain Leonard come up and give a brief overview. And go ahead.
Thank you, Chief. Mr. Mayor, council members, this is our second graduating class. They have gone through 10 weeks of training as part of this program. They are your neighbors. They come from all parts of the city and from all walks of life. And during the course of this training, they have been exposed to all aspects of the police department operations. Their trainings included everything from constitutional law to use of force, property crimes, death investigation, child abuse crimes, and crime scene investigation. They also took part in a ride-along with a police officer to see what our officers do on a daily basis. And tonight they become our second graduating class. Ready for
I'm going to ask Councilmember Ron Fennell, who chairs the Public Safety Committee. I know he's been involved, and y'all may know him with.
I'll just stand here with you and thank them for what they've done to contribute to the community.
Okay. So our list of graduates: Tyler Addison,
Looks like the beeve. That's a compliment. That's a compliment.
Wendy Admonson, Dennis Barlow, Marilyn Blackburn,
One more. Thank you.
Thomas Blackwood, Sheila King, Diane Raisin, Claudia Rowe, Rosalind Shepard, Jean Terascavage. Kay Terascavage.
It's odd.
And Latanya Wilkins.
All right.
No, there's no way. It's going to be a
We'll layer,
tiny little.
layer it a little bit.
Yeah, y'all need to.
The vertically challenged.
Yes, please.
Let's not let-
All right, all right. Pardon me, you need to. Can you slide over? We don't need you anymore. Yeah. All right. 1, 2, 3. Okay, good. You're good. Thank you.
Academy for Smyrna Police Department.
Max and our city council members, if you'll allow us to do this, I'm sure no other class has ever done this, but Captain Leonard, would you please come forward? You know, this has been such a wonderful experience for us as citizens of Smyrna, and we're just so delighted. And thank you so much for making this wonderful. I know that you'll never have another class like us, only because this is for him, the thank you. It has all the names of each one of our instructors as well as the students. But what we also want to say is that we love you, Captain. Oh, yes, we do. We love you, Captain. To you we're true. We love you, Captain, for teaching us the things you do. We love you, Captain Leonard. We love you. Thank you.
Before y'all sit down, I would like to just briefly, somebody to tell me what you did and what y'all got out of it, and what you're the last guy standing. Speaking of that microphone there, you can look this way.
Sing first? You don't want me to sing, but I'm glad that you've asked me, because what I got out of it was a better understanding of what the city of Smyrna and how it works as a whole, and how the police department works. You know, as a typical young citizen, my only real interaction is when they catch me speeding, and I disagree. So then I find myself up here begging for mercy. So having spent 12 years in the Marines, I know a little bit about how a system works and how government works, but not knowing how they work and who the people really are behind the uniform has made a big difference. Just to be able to interact with them, see how they are. They're real people, and they do a good job in what they actually do. So for me, that was it. The training and the classes were great. That was interesting. And but for me personally, more of it was about knowing who the guys are and what they actually do. So that's what I got out of it.
We think it's a great program, and
It is.
we don't have anything to do with it, and that's probably why it's so good. Is we let those guys. They tell
There
you what
should
it's
be, I
all
think, a
about.
little bit more shooting and blowing things up. But other than that, it was outstanding.
Thank y'all very much.
Thank you.
Y'all got to stay the rest of the meeting. No, we wouldn't do that to anybody. We have a couple of folks that are here. Ziad Salami is here. I can never pronounce Ziad's name right. He is here to recognize a step dance team from Campbell Middle School that won the national championship in Chicago.
Yes, sir.
And
Good evening.
They're here. We're going to recognize them. Thank y'all so much, the folks leaving. Ziad.
Well, along the same positive notes that we've heard so far, Mr. Mayor, council members, I am very proud to introduce to you a group of people, a young, very energetic, 8 of you? 8 kids. Before we talk about their stepping, I just want to mention that they're all A's and B's kids. They're top-notch kids at Campbell Middle School, and they're all involved in some other activities, chorus, band, orchestra, and others. They practice all the time. Stepping, for those who do not know it, is not your ballroom dance, not your party dance, but it's a very strenuous, very intense, synchronized, really coordinated team effort dance. They go all throughout the nation to compete, and a couple weekends ago they went to Chicago. They competed against nationally recognized as good, not as good teams. And of course they came back victorious. They were so good that they outscored the high school level teams.
Yeah.
So that achievement as well. But just to make sure they're not good just because they're good, because we have an excellent coach, Mr. Clayton, Mr. Michael Clayton.
Why don't you come up here, Ziad? All the kids, y'all come on up.
Come on.
So like American Idol, kind of.
Yeah. I would like to introduce you. I've been coaching the step team for the past 7 years now, and at Campbell Middle School, we've been gracious enough to have 2 national championships. So this is one of my students, Danielle Lacey. She's been with me 3 years. David Taylor, he's been with me 3 years. Nadia Salimi, been with me 3 years. Kayla George, 2 years. Jordan Falston, 2 years. Malaysia Foreman, 2 years. 3 years. Alana Almond, 3 years. And Miaja Scott, 2 years. So we've been together. We've traveled all over the East Coast, winning trophies up and down. And Mayor Bacon, we would like to give you this to make you an honorary all-star.
I hope it's a double X.
It is.
I'll come down here.
Okay, there you go, sir. You're welcome. Are you guys coming in?
We have some candidates that are running for something. There's an election May 20th, I think. Ann Harris is here. She's the candidate for the Cobb Superior Court judge, and I'll give you a brief moment to say hey and who you are, and if you'd like to.
Good evening, Mayor Bacon, members of the Smyrna City Council. I am Senior Assistant District Attorney Ann Harris with the Cobb District Attorney's Office, and I would like to be your next Superior Court judge. As you know, Judge Bodiford is retiring, and it's an open seat this year. Superior Court handles domestic and some civil cases, but they also handle every felony crime that occurs in Cobb County. And I've devoted the last 19 years to prosecuting in Superior Court, where my sworn duty has been to seek justice, to hold offenders accountable, to make the hard decisions to protect our community. I helped draft the first human trafficking legislation in 2006. I successfully prosecuted the first case of felony elder abuse here in the state of Georgia. I've prosecuted murderers, rapists, armed robbers, and drug traffickers. These are serious crimes, and they affect not just one family or one business. They affect our entire community. For this reason, the Fraternal Order of Police has chosen to endorse me as the candidate, as your next Superior Court judge. In my career, I've also been wise enough to recognize that there are offenders who deserve compassion. So I have recommended alternatives to prison, and I've offered second chances to those who are deserving. I've demonstrated a respect for the rule of law and worked to be fair to everyone that I deal with. No judge, no lawyer knows everything. The law is constantly changing, but I work in every case to know the law and to follow the law. I've handled more cases in Superior Court and tried more cases in Superior Court than either of my opponents. And yet I have not had a jury trial reversed in 19 years. My husband and I have been married for 29 years. We've lived in Smyrna for over 2 decades. Prior to going to law school at Vanderbilt, I worked in the business world for 7 years, and when I finished law school, I chose public service not because I wanted to do well, but because I wanted to do good. Regardless of the kind of case, I promise you, as your Superior Court judge, I will work to deliver justice, to hold people accountable, to make the hard decisions, to be devoted to the rule of law, and to serve with fairness and integrity. I have the experience that matters in Cobb Superior Court and the experience that we need. I am Ann Harris, and I respectfully ask for your vote on May the 20th. Thank you.
I know Jeff Abel is out there somewhere. He's school board, and I think we got a couple of school board candidates here tonight, and there might be other candidates that I just don't see.
Mr. Mayor, council members and residents, I appreciate having a moment to introduce myself. I'm a candidate for Cobb County School Board, Post 2, which is predominantly in the Smyrna area, and schools just lying outside the city limits. I'm running for school board to advocate for parents, teachers, students in this community. We need a diligent representation here and a strong voice in the city of Smyrna. I've been an active Smyrna resident since 1995 and a longtime volunteer with the community and with the schools. My wife and I are raising 2 girls here. I've got a daughter attending Nickajack Elementary today, and the other's been through Griffin Middle and is now a high school student at Campbell High. I've got 18 years of business experience in financial services, and as a former small business owner right here in Smyrna, I know how to listen and collaborate and evaluate options and take actions towards efficient business decisions. These are skills that are going to be critical to create an environment of continuing progress and improvement for the children and teachers here in our schools. So I'm looking for the voter support in the primary elections of May 20th and taking the next step towards being your school board representative for this post. I appreciate it.
Susan Thayer, I think, is out there somewhere. She's running for school board. Is there any other candidate out there running for anything or thinking about running for something? No, you're good. You're the last one, Susan.
Thank you. I actually came just to be an observer tonight. I got to speak to you one other time, so I'm not exactly dressed for this, but I do appreciate the time. I'm Susan Thayer, running for school board. I've been a businesswoman, been a realtor, and I've also been an educator for over 30 years. I've served as a teacher, a high school principal, assistant superintendent, so I understand education from the ground up. I know how to make decisions that will be results-oriented, and I know how those decisions will impact the classroom before I make them. So I ask for your support. Again, I'm Susan Thayer for school board. Thank you very much.
Now we'll get into the regular portion of the agenda. Item 4 is land issue zonings and annexation. A, 2014-098 is a public hearing. Zoning request Z14-008, rezoning from R15 to RAD conditional for the development of 4 single-family homes at a density of 2.96 units per acre, 1.35 tract, land lot 527, 3713 King Springs Road, the McLean Company. I know the applicant is here. Mr. Taylor, will you give us a background, please?
Certainly, Mr. Mayor. As you mentioned, this is zoning request Z14-008, a rezoning from R15 RAD conditional for the development of 4 single-family homes at a density of 2.96 units per acre, 1.35 acre tract, with the McLean Company being the applicant. The resulting density would be 2.96 units per acre. The zoning request was heard by the Planning and Zoning Commission at the March 10th, 2014 meeting and was recommended for approval by a vote of 7-0. Staff has done a thorough review of this and is also recommending approval for 4 single-family units with conditions.
This is a public hearing. Is there anyone here that's in opposition to or that would like to make any public comment concerning this rezoning? Those that would like to speak, please come forward at this time and we'll swear you in, or the city attorney will. And even if you just think you want to speak and don't, I just really want to swear everybody in all at one time. And Brad Thompson, come on, and even if you just think you want to, just all you gotta do is raise your hand when you come up here. No, I'm not talking about. No, I'm talking about these guys in the back. I think there's somebody in the back there that's going to want to speak in just a minute. But okay, go ahead. This is in Mr. Wade Lineker's ward. Mr. Lineker.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'd like to ask Rusty Martin, planner with our Community Development Department, to come up and give us some background, please, or Ken Sudworth, either one, the director. Ken, I tried to give you a chance to.
I almost took it.
Not have to carry the burden.
I know. I almost took it. But Rusty was at the other meeting, so I figured I'd bail him out tonight.
And I appreciated that.
This is a request by the McLean Company. It did go to planning and zoning. What you have in front of you is a recommendation for approval. It was a unanimous recommendation. What we are dealing with in simple terms is the subdivision of one lot into 4 single-family lots. The existing zoning is R15. The proposed is RAD conditional. The conditions that we have on the property are the ones that you normally see for this type of RAD request. The standard conditions are attached. And the existing land use and the proposed land use are identical, so we don't have any changes there. Here you see both the zoning map and the future development map. You can see it is located at the corner of King Springs and Kings View. And this is the proposed site plan showing the 4 lots in addition to the required square footage for each lot to create the open space, as well as a storm management facility area for drainage purposes. This shows exactly where that open space is, as well as where the storm facility is located. These are the proposed home elevations, which are very typical to other subdivisions throughout the city. Pictures of the subject property and adjacent properties. As we said, staff as well as Planning Commission recommended approval of the 4 single-family units at a density of 2.96 units per acre with the following conditions. You have the standard conditions, which have to deal with the composition of the homes, the requirement of the protective covenants, the common open space requirement, which we've already mentioned, as well as the detention requirement there referenced in 4. All utilities associated with this would be underground. If there is any need determined by the city for any traffic improvements, the developer is responsible for that. No debris can be buried on any lot. Decorative street lights, they've got to follow the tree ordinance. All landscape plans have to be done by a registered landscape architect. For the development, all yards are to be sodded. And then we have the tree requirements that all single family shall provide the following at the time of the CO, which is either 4 3-inch caliber trees or 3 4-inch caliber trees, unless it's otherwise approved by the city arborist, and then some samples. Now, there are special conditions that have to do with setbacks and minimum lot size, 22-foot minimum length for the driveway, the sidewalk issues, again, the stormwater facility. We've emphasized here, too, that the developer or who ultimately is the home builder shall comply with all requirements of the city noise ordinance. That is an existing ordinance. They have to comply with that. But given some past issues we've had, we felt like it would be appropriate to just call attention to that requirement, as well as condition 21 and 22, which basically means that they are bound to what they submit, both in site plan as well as the elevations. So with that, I will leave you with the site plan. I'm happy to answer any questions on this request.
Any questions of Mr. Sudworth?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sudworth. I'd like to ask Mr. Brad Thompson, the developer, to come forward. And Mr. Thompson, what would you add to Mr. Sudworth's presentation?
Well, as usual, Ken does a very thorough job. Really, the only thing I would say, we have a lot of people that want to speak tonight. I will kind of reserve my time for questions, but this proposal is not very different from anything you've seen time and again throughout the city. The nature and character of the homes will be very, very similar to Riley's Walk. And I took a group of folks over there the other day, and I think for the most part they were impressed with the way the homes will look. I think that they have concerns that I can't really overcome. So other than that, it's just from a density standpoint, it's not unusual. We're complying with the city's land use. Woodbury Place, just to the north of us, has lots similar towers in terms of size. So I feel like this is a request that is not unusual, not unique. But at this point, I think I'll just reserve the time for questions.
Mr. Thompson, I appreciated you joining Planner Rusty Martin and myself and Councilwoman Wilkinson Tuesday night at a meeting with the residents in the neighborhood. And thank you for being there and answering questions and providing information. At that meeting, there was some discussion about having a second meeting with you later that week. And then, to be honest, Wednesday I ended up very sick for the next 3 days. We've not talked or followed up since then. Did that meeting happen, or has there been any further communication? You mentioned a trip to Riley's Walk, or?
Yes, sir. That was the meeting that I think it was Friday. It might have been Thursday. My memory's so bad, but there was a group of I think 4 residents. Might have been 3, but I think there was 4 initially, and then 3 actually went over to Riley's Walk and walked the subdivision. And we talked about specific plans and elevations.
Okay. In the meeting Tuesday night, you talked about the home elevations that were submitted with this application, and it seemed to be a question, I guess, in my mind as to whether those were typical elevations or the elevations that you plan to build. Where are we on that?
They're typical. I mean, I think if I had taken pictures of the actual plans that we saw at Riley's Walk, that would be something I could say we're actually going to build that exact plan with that elevation. Now, as to whether we use the exact color of brick and paint, that's up for discussion. But the homes we saw at Riley's Walk that day are the very plans and elevations that we intend to build.
Do you know what those homes at Riley's Walk sold for or would sell for today?
I can't answer what they would sell for today. I think when they were sold back in, I think it was 2012, they sold in the mid threes. Maybe they even got above 350, 360 maybe. That was, of course, pre-recession. Now today, what they would sell for, it's anybody's guess, but I'd venture to say that if it was 350, 330 to 350 a year and a half ago, it's probably 380 today, I'm guessing.
Okay, so you're thinking that's the price point that you'll be marketing these homes at?
No, sir. I think we got two different places, two different areas.
Okay.
I think King Springs Road doesn't get the same. You take the same house and transport it. I think there is a difference, and I don't think you don't get as much of a premium on King Springs Road as you would in Riley's Walk, based on its proximity to the Market Village.
Okay. That's probably all for now. Does other council members have any questions?
Thank you, Brad.
I'll ask.
Well, wait a minute, hold on. I think Ms. Wilkinson has a, Brad, I think Ms. Wilkinson has a question.
Up to you.
I have a question, and it concerns the elevations, and I was just noticing that number 22 talks about the elevations that were submitted and dated 2/7/2014, and it says that approval of any changes to the elevations must be obtained from the Director of Community Development. I guess I just kind of want to clarify what it says here in the condition.
Yes, ma'am. I think that again, these are typical. These are not exact. If it's needed to go back in front of Ken, then we have no problem with doing that. Now, basically what we saw at Riley's Walk, I think, was a better indication. These are black and white photos, and I mean, they're not even photos, they're sketches. And they really are just meant to be to give an idea of the types of materials that we're going to use. But if we're needing to narrow it down and I need to have everything approved by Ken, then we're certainly willing to do that.
Okay, I have another question too. Will there be sidewalks on King Springs and the other road,
Kingsview?
Kingsview?
Under item 17, special condition, they're requiring sidewalks to be run the length of the property.
Okay.
I would respectfully request that maybe be giving some consideration as to the first 150 feet along King Springs are fairly simple to put a sidewalk in. The last 200 feet are a little more difficult because the topography is so rough. And I would request that maybe be given some consideration to eliminate the 2-foot landscape buffer so I can bring the sidewalk up as close to the curb as possible and therefore save quite a bit of grading if we're approved tonight.
So you would say that you would want to do the sidewalk as the city has done previously, their own sidewalks?
I'll do the sidewalk.
No, but I'm talking about the 2-foot.
Yeah, right now there's no sidewalk existing there.
Okay.
And as you go south on King Springs Road, the property, as you get about 150 feet beyond, it gets pretty severe topographically. It falls directly off the curb I can't tell you what the grade is, but it's easily probably a 1-to-1 slope, which putting a sidewalk in on that is going to require an enormous amount of grading, probably a sub-wall to hold that sidewalk up. And to come 2 feet behind the curb and then start a 5-foot sidewalk even makes it more challenging. So what I would like to request is that starting at 150 feet, going away from Kingsview, we're able to eliminate the 2-foot landscape buffer.
Any other questions of Mr. Thompson? Thank you. We had a number of folks that signed up to, or that were sworn in to speak. If you'll please come forward at this time and tell us who you are and where you live at and any comment that you would like to make.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. I'm Walter McDonald. I live at 1284 Kingsview Circle. which is at the end of the road. And I wish I had the ability to bring a bunch of videos here to show these things, but our problem wasn't the floor plan. I disagree with the price points along Kingsview. It has a bunch of homes that are quite expensive. At the other end, they're $800,000 homes, and the ones that Carr Property built were all in the $400,000 to $500,000, and even the ones adjacent across the street range from $3,000 to $5,000. Our proposal was to change the location of the homes so that they faced King Springs. Right now, you've got a 200 or 197 foot drive up to where you're going to stare at the back of 4 cluster homes jammed together. These, in our opinion, do not fit what is going down the street that they are aiming down the street of. These are all 1960s, mid-60s homes that these are going to be, except for the ones facing King Springs. So this is a completely different context of home that has not been represented here, in my opinion. It'd be like building this in the middle of Bennett Woods, and it doesn't fit what Forest Hills is. And we just believe, our request was that if he changed the building to face King Springs, that it would both look better from the approach, so you wouldn't be staring down 200 foot of backyards, and that it would also mirror the homes on the other side of the street, which we thought would be nice. Then it kind of gives the same look as you drive down. So it wasn't really the zoning that we were fighting, it was the direction of the homes, and it would solve your sidewalk problem because the homes would have basement lots and would be able to provide a front buffer and create the same sidewalk that's built on the other side of the street that was required of Mr. Shepard. Our complaint was not the homes, not the subdivision feel. It was more of that it's not what the rest of the neighborhood is, and that it would have a better presentation if it faced the road. And we were not able to work out anything on that. So what we were hoping for is that you make one of the conditions of this rezoning be that these homes face, like the houses adjacent, face King Springs with a road behind it, so that the cluster of traffic doesn't ramp up right at the street where everybody's trying to get in and out of our neighborhood. We're going to wind up with, a driveway with 5 houses plus 4 more houses all impacting right there together. And we just feel like that's it's a whole lot of cars coming in and out at one time. So we were hoping to change all this to make it have the same feel as what's on the other side of the street. And that's all I have to present.
Okay, thank you very much.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. Unfortunately, I can't sing and I can't step, so I will spare you that. But my name is Shantae Glover, and I live in Woodbury Place. If you could bring up the proposed site plan, if you could go back to that, I can just... It's on? Okay. Great, thank you. We had a meeting with the developer, Brad Thompson, last week. I'd like to say he's been very open to meet with us. Woodbury Place is just across the street of Kingsview Drive. And we had 2 main concerns. One is traffic, and the other is the aesthetics. With the traffic, if we start there, Kingsview Drive, it's a very narrow road. And across the street in our subdivision, there's actually a drive that gets to our 7 houses. So that kind of controls the flow of cars. With this plan and the 4 houses facing Kingsview Drive, the driveways would spill into Kingsview. So if they have visitors or guests, you may have several cars on Kingsview Drive. And again, it's a very narrow road. So what we're proposing is that if you move forward with the approval, if you move forward with the approval, have house number 1 turned diagonal, kind of catty corner. That would address the aesthetics concern, because coming down King Springs, it would block a little of the view to the backyard of the other homes. And if it's turned then the driveway would be a little longer, and it would allow for a couple of cars to park. Now, that won't solve all of the homes in and out of Kingsview Drive, but that would decrease the traffic by about 25%, which every little bit helps when you're in a small community. So, again, we're requesting that you approve it with that condition. We did look at the homes. They are very nice homes. I think they would fit in well with the area. Again, we just want those two items addressed. And Woodbury, I represent the Homeowners Association, and I'm the president, so I'm representing our community. So I just want to say thank you to Brad, because he has been very open and taking time to work with us.
How many homes are in Woodbury?
7.
7.
We have 4 on King Springs, and then there's a private drive with 1 home on Kings View. So the private drive allows for some of those cars and the traffic, so that controls it a little bit.
Was that project built by Ashton Woods? Is that
It was actually Bob Rash of Shepperson Homes. Yeah. It's a beautiful area.
Yeah.
Should come check us out.
All right. Any questions?
Ms. Glover, thank you for being here and for, helping organize the meeting last week. I'm just thinking out loud here.
Sure.
If parking at the entrance of Kingsview Drive is or might be a problem now or in the future, this is usually not a popular option in a neighborhood, but one option would be for the city to designate a no parking zone, put up signs saying no parking, either all the time or certain days and hours. And I'm wondering, thinking out loud, if that would be appropriate here. And I know the situation as you come off King Springs, the road is level, but then you're going down the hill towards Kingsview Circle. And if there were cars parked in the roadway for whatever reason, whether they were your neighbors and their company or future homeowners or whoever, you could end up with a potential blind spot, 2 cars coming up and meeting. Would a no parking zone be something the city should consider regardless of what happens here?
From a safety perspective, I would say yes. Being a resident moving into the area, if I were new to the area, there's not a lot of places to park. So it would, if you're entertaining, for example, and you can't park on the street, you have to park in the driveway. So that may make it challenging for the developer. Of course, I'm looking out because I'm a resident, but it may make it difficult for him to sell because they wouldn't have anywhere to park. But I think from a safety perspective, that would make it better. Because if you don't do that, you could end up with those 4 homes' cars plus the other side of the street, and you may end up weaving in and out, and that could cause some other problems. So from a safety perspective, yes.
I'm not advocating using somebody else's property, but has your neighborhood and your residents ever used the church parking lot or talked to the church about whether they would like that or not like that? I mean...
Right. We haven't spoken to the church. I'll tell on myself a little bit. I have had company park over at the church. I believe the pastor's in here. Just to control the traffic. I'm fortunate because in that subdivision, I'm the only one with 2 driveways. So I have a front entrance and a back entrance. So most of the time I can have my company park there. It's just really, really tight. Am I getting buzzed? It's just really, really tight. The church could be an option to help with the overflow of traffic, but we're going to have something in place. Either no parking, a house turned, because I really think with the size of the drive, it's going to cause issues. Something has to happen. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Sure. Thank you for listening. Thanks for your time.
Anyone else who was sworn in? You don't have to speak if your questions have been answered or asked. Ms. Lynn? You got a question?
Yeah. I guess if we get Mr. Thompson back up, please.
Brad, 2 questions I had addressing the 2 residents who spoke about the traffic management issue. just looking at it and having driven by to see the topo challenges on this site, could you speak to that as to why the orientation on your proposed plan? And secondly, is it not preferable to exit 4 driveways onto the side street rather than the busy King Springs, was the question I had.
I think the answer is absolutely. I mean, this is your area, public safety. I think there's no way you want to bring 4 additional driveways or 1 alleyway and dump it out on King Springs with the amount of traffic and the speed at which they go up and down that road. I realize it's posted at 35. I'm guessing if you stood out there one day and just clocked it, they'd probably be running at 40, 45 easy. So that was one reason, was public safety. To be very frank, the biggest reason is that we don't believe that fronting them out on King Springs gives us the highest or best opportunity to sell a home. We also don't believe that rear entry gives us the highest and best opportunity to sell a home. We believe this is more of a family area. Now, families do buy rear entry homes, but it does significantly shrink your buyer pool. And so I've done a lot of rear entry. I like it. Personally, I'm not all that crazy about garage doors on the front of a house. But I also know that when I've done my rear entry communities in the past, we don't have a lot of families. And I just don't see, I think when you're down in the kind of the town center, the core, that makes a lot more sense to do it down there. When you're out here, I think it's a family market. And that's why we did what we did. The other thing is, with the topographical challenges that are there, we'd be probably 5 to 6 feet below the road with our first floor, with our front door. And that is also not something that makes selling a house very easy. So those were all the reasons we entered into, or we gave consideration to when we designed this.
Any other questions?
Ms. Wilkinson.
Ms. Wilkinson.
I also wanted to ask about the option that this lady mentioned about the corner house. Was that something that was discussed, or
It was discussed, and I did go back and look at it, and I actually had a conversation with her earlier today that we are able to do that. I'm not able to do much to try to alleviate their concerns, but I can corner the house to give it a little bit more of an aesthetic appeal as you come down King Springs, at least from the north. So, and I think actually from the south too. It'll make it look a little better coming the other direction, both directions. But I can do that. I don't know exactly how much I can do it. I won't sit here and say I can do it at a 45-degree angle, because I didn't have a protractor when I was looking at it, but I think I can significantly angle that house to give it a better aesthetics. And I'm willing to do that.
Okay, thank you.
I guess if I could ask Mr. Sudworth to come back up, please. And Ken, this may or may not be a question that is best and properly addressed to you, and you may wish to call on some of your colleagues, hoping that you don't see them in the back of the room. But Mr. Thompson mentioned he would ask for some allowance on the sidewalk on King Springs Road because of the topography, to put that sidewalk up on the curb as opposed to having a 2-foot grass strip to kind of buffer the sidewalk and pedestrians from the traffic on the road. Instinctively, that makes me nervous, just because, and the times I'm up and down King Springs now, I don't live on King Springs Road or off of King Springs Road, so I don't see what the people that live there do. But I don't see a lot of cars going 50 and 60 down there, but to have a sidewalk on a street that has that many cars per day, to have that sidewalk right up against the curb makes me nervous. Do we want to provide pedestrian access in that manner? And is that something that should concern us from a safety standpoint, or would we rather encourage people to use the sidewalk on the west side of King Springs, where still in many sections it abuts the roadway for various reasons? That was built back in the 90s. What's the right and best answer in terms of, do we build a sidewalk that when it gets to the end of the property line on this property, there is no sidewalk going south, there's a sidewalk at Woodbury Place going north, but at the end of the property it stops again. What's the right answer for asking a builder and developer to fund a sidewalk at all, or what kind of sidewalk?
Well, there's a couple questions in the question.
Yes.
And you're correct, there are probably other staff people within the city, like the city engineer or the public works director, that may be better able to address that. But from a planner's point of view, I'm not sure that the safety aspect is decreased because you remove what we call the beauty strip or the comfort strip. It is a psychological issue with people that you're not feeling like you're on the edge, but I don't think it changes the safety. It changes the psychology, having that there. And it's a little more aesthetically pleasing because you have a little strip of grass. That's from a planner's point of view. In the past, when we've had some sidewalk questions, not necessarily this particular one, but we have approved sidewalks that it is required unless otherwise approved by the city engineer, and that allows then staff to really work with the developer on the true topography that is there to see what is reasonable at that period of time, instead of trying to negotiate that here. I'm not, just from a policy question, which was embedded in your question about, well, maybe we shouldn't require the sidewalk at all and have people use the other side. I'm not, just from my perspective as community development director, I'm not a big fan of not having the sidewalks. I don't have any particular problem with reducing that beauty strip aspect, and then on occasion maybe even lowering it from 5 to 4, or allowing it to go around a tree or a pole, that makes sense. The purpose of the requirement of the sidewalks is to ultimately have additional connectivity throughout the city, which you all know. And to me, relying on just one side of a road, especially the nature of King Springs, I'm not sure is the best direction to go in. Now that, again, as I said, is from a planner's perspective, not from a traffic engineer, city engineer point of view.
If we did ask him to build a sidewalk, if this were to go forward, fronting King Springs Road, and we gave staff the ability to have or not have the so-called beauty strip, or to have 5 feet, which is the city standard, or 4 feet, to try to mitigate costs. If he had to build the retaining wall anyway and move a lot of dirt in order to support a sidewalk in that area, does it really matter in terms of cost or effort or design whether the sidewalk is 4 or 5 feet, or there's 2 feet or 1 foot or no foot of beauty strip? I mean, to move the wall 0 to 3 feet, if there's going to be a wall anywhere anyway, what's the right answer in terms of what we might ask a builder to do in that situation?
Well, again, without knowing the topo specifically, at what the 150-foot mark is as an example, since that was referenced, and how it extends through that, it can make a big difference. Even though it sounds small to say, well, it's only a foot less, the foot is not level, it's on an angle. And there is a difference, just from my own past experience in working on other projects, both here as well as in other communities I've worked in. It's not just, oh, well, if it costs, and I'm just picking numbers for simplicity. If it's costing me $100 a foot to do a sidewalk, to do the 5 feet, but then I have the elevation issue, it doesn't add up sequentially. It is exponentially is what happens to the cost associated with that. So you may be able to get the first 3 feet in and hit that $100 target as an example. But to get the other foot or 2 feet, it's not $100. It may be $500. So it's not just, oh, well, it's another 100 on top of 100 kind of issue. That's what I'm trying to illustrate. Yeah, it can make a difference on that. And I have been in other communities where we, even as a city, had run into those very problems. We were dealing with larger sidewalks. We were dealing like with 12-foot, multi-use trails, and we cut it back to 10 because of topo issues. So I know it does matter.
Okay. Based on the testimony and questions and concerns that you've heard tonight, are there any suggested or recommended changes to any of the stipulations that staff would propose for council to consider if your recommendation
I think Mr.
remains?
Thompson has already agreed to angling that corner house. Of that, I think that could be added to the motion. That corner lot, that the house associated with, being angled. As he said, he doesn't know what that angle is, and again, it would be somewhat irresponsible of me just to pick a number and say, hey, it needs to be 25% angled or whatever, or 45 on that. That would be a number I would be pulling out of the air. But I think you could add some language to that effect.
I'm not saying what we will or won't do or what my motion might or might be, because I'm still debating that. But if we were to move forward on that basis, since this is an RAD conditional request based upon a specific site plan, are we able to allow staff to amend that site plan administratively for some vague condition like that, or statement I might make as part of a motion, or do we need to actually revise the site plan?
Well, in my point of view, and again, you can ask Scott Cochran to verify this. I do think you have the ability to give staff some flexibility there. We have done it in other aspects, and we've even have it built in some of the conditions that Ms. Wilkinson had mentioned. Is that that if there are changes to the elevations, it has to be approved by staff. So I do think you have the ability. The aspect of having to be super specific because it's an RAD, I'm okay with some general aspects associated with that. Because of the conversation that has been had tonight and the very one we're having now, even if I'm not here when the house is built, it's in the record as to what your intents were. And so that's what we use now when we end up with property that was approved before I got here, is we'll go back and check the record. So you're adding it in the record that there's an intent that that house be angled. This is also a project that I'm assuming that Mr. Thompson, when he gets approval, he's not going to sit on the property for 2 or 3 years before he gets around to building on it. I would assume it would be a fairly quick turnaround on that, so that it would be fresh in everybody's mind. And we're only dealing with 4 lots here.
And my final question for you, and I know you're happy to hear that. If the conditional zoning was turned down and Mr. Thompson was left with the option of building based on R15 zoning, what do you think might be different about this? Is it still going to be 4 homes? Is it going to be looking much different, or?
I think it's an excellent question, and it's obviously one that we always consider at staff level. My guess is, just sort of eyeballing it, you'd probably still end it with 3 lots. And there would be no zonings. There would be no chance to add conditions. The standard conditions would still apply. It's like there's the first 12 or so. But those other 10 wouldn't be in play on that. And the issue about angling the house that we just talked about wouldn't be there. So it's not like you're not going to have, it's not, oh, if you turn it down, nothing's going to happen. Something will happen on the property. And it would either be Mr. Thompson or to be a future buyer. And if they agreed to the R15, my guess is, yeah, it's probably going to be about 3 lots there.
This landscaping strip where the sidewalk would be, who maintains that?
Well, the city normally likes to have the property owner maintain to the curb line, which would include that strip. If they actually said, hey, I don't own that, I'm not going to do that, technically they'd have a point, Mayor, on that. We would still encourage them to do it, but I suppose if we ran into a real problem, that you'd have to talk to them.
And I'm just thinking out. I mean, it's on the city right away, so technically we would be required to maintain it. And also, I don't know how many thousands of feet of sidewalk that we've built throughout the city, and we don't even meet our own standards that we require developers to and builders to do. We don't, we build right up to the curb, and we don't have any landscape. I just think what's good for new home builders is the city should maintain that same standard. And that's, if we're going to require to have a landscaping strip, then we ought to have one where we build. That's just my opinion. And Mr. Fennell.
And I apologize up front. This is probably a policy question that ought to be discussed outside of the discussion here, but since it's raised as a part of this issue on the very point I was curious about, it's the sidewalks. Given the fact that there is no connectivity to a continuity of a walk path down that side of the road, but there is one on the other side, albeit inferior to what we hold to the current standard, would it be appropriate for the developer to pay into a fund that then we can improve the one and create a crosswalk linkage from Kingsview over to and allow for a proper one side of the road thoroughfare from one end to the other to be a part of a solution? I know that's a public works and it's a policy question, but what is your opinion of some potential solution like that?
I think council has the ability to waive that requirement and put a substitution in for it.
But if we wanted the developer to pay for that sidewalk and we determine, or collectively it's determined that that's, $5,000 for that sidewalk, and instead of, in lieu of him building that sidewalk with topo challenges, he writes a check to the sidewalk fund and we build a crosswalk and then improve the sidewalk on the opposite side.
I think you have that authority.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions, Mr. Sudworth? Thank you, Ken.
Your Honor, if it'd be all right, I'd like to ask Ms. Glover to come back up, if she would, please. Ms. Glover is the representative of the Woodbury Park HOA. Having heard the discussion and the conversation and the questions and dialogue, what would you ask the council to do at this point? What would be your position?
My position would be to approve the rezoning with the conditions of angling the house, and for the city to consider no parking hours. Just thinking forward, next month is Memorial Day. You have 4 houses. All it takes is each house to invite 3 people over. You have 12 cars. Where do they go? We have a problem. So if the city would consider the no parking and the condition of angling the house and making sure that it's not just a gentleman's agreement, that it's part of the condition to approving, I think that would help us. Yes, sir.
Do you mind if I jump in and ask that question relative to the sidewalk solution that I offered? Did that make any sense to you?
It did. If I understood it correctly, going down King's View, there would be a crosswalk across the street, and then the sidewalk would continue down the road where it is now. Yes, that would definitely help because there's nothing there now, so I think it would help us. Sure.
Ms. Wilkinson?
Thank you. I'm just trying to clarify, maybe this question is more for Ron, is that right now, I thought you said there was a sidewalk on the other side, but she said, you're saying there isn't?
There is. It stops at Woodbury Place. And so going down the hill, it's one entry in and out. It stops at our subdivision, and there's nothing else down the hill.
So, and my concern would be the crosswalk there, because it's not a red light, and then you would have pedestrian traffic there without a stop sign or a red light. I'm just saying, so I'm concerned.
Yeah, I think for us personally, it doesn't matter to me if it's down the right side or the left side. I know from a topography perspective, it probably does matter, but as a citizen, as long as I can walk down the street, I'm good.
Just curious, I mean, where would you walk down the street to?
I walk down the hill. There's a hill going down Kingsview, down towards Forest Hill, and it's a nice walk. Good exercise. Keeps you in shape. It's beautiful out. That's where I take my walk.
So I got a double X.
A t-shirt.
We can probably go walking with her this weekend.
That's right. Get out. It's beautiful.
Any other questions?
No, again, thank you for
Sure.
your input
Thank you
this
for hearing.
evening and for the other residents that are here. Any other questions or comments from the council?
Okay. Thank you.
You know, what's interesting is, I've done this job, for a while now. Some of the hardest issues are sometimes small issues. We sometimes have wonderful discussions about what most people in the Smyrna world would say, that's a pretty minor issue, but we get pretty intense on them. And the big picture stuff, like what's going to happen at Jonquil or Belmont Hills, sometimes we often come to a quick agreement on and move forward on. And this was an interesting situation. I appreciate the spirit of the neighborhood and the way they've come together to talk to the developer, to talk with me, to talk amongst each other, to listen. Tuesday night at the meeting with the homeowners, it's like any meeting I have in Smyrna. I mean, I'm proud of Smyrna people. They're respectful, they listen, they have a great dialogue, they ask good questions, sometimes tough questions. I appreciate Mr. Thompson giving what I thought were honest answers and appraisals of what he was able to do and not to do, and different kinds of responses to different sort of what-if situations. And I know that we're only talking about 4 homes, but Tip O'Neill was right. All politics is local. And when you're close to other homes, other people's homes, they get real concerned. Probably many of us, myself included, ended up in elected service because of things that were happening near our home that we got involved in and said we want to get more involved in and serve in a bigger and in a different way. And sometimes to try to change things that were happening. I know Mr. Thompson has done other developments in the city and is generally viewed in our community as a responsible and reputable builder. I think the residents of his homes, which have been concentrated in other wards, not in Ward 6, but to my knowledge, and Ms. Nolowitz or others can validate, I think the residents in his homes are generally happy residents. They like the quality of the construction and the workmanship. And so, he comes in with sort of that situation in his favor. The property involved in this belonged to the Petty family, a great family, part of Smyrna's history and legacy. And this is sort of the last part of a family farm that 80 years ago was actively farmed. And I'm sure as the farms started disappearing around Smyrna and all of Cobb County, in the 40s and 50s, there was lots of people concerned about what's going to happen when all the farms are gone. Now, from Cobb County standpoint, the farms are gone, and density and quality of construction and everything is always an issue for the residents of the community. I'm going to offer a motion to approve item zoning request Z14-008 a rezoning from R15 to RAD conditional for the development of 4 single-family homes at a density of 2.96 units per acre on a 1.35 acre tract, land lot 527 at 3713 King Springs Road, the McLean Company, subject to the stipulations that were submitted by staff and recommended in this, with the additional requirement that the corner house be angled, subject to determination and approval by the Director of Community Development, and subject to allowing the Director of Community Development to consider how the sidewalk on King Springs Road should or if be constructed. That is my motion.
Have a motion and a second by Ms. Pritchett. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please vote. That is approved 6-0, and Ms. Bluestein is absent tonight, so that's approved. With those stipulations. All right, this 4B, as I mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, it was going to be tabled. That's the public hearing zoning request Z14003, rezoning R15 to RAD conditional, 4.01 acre tract, 4105 North Cooper Lake Road, McLean Corporation. I don't know if there's anybody here for that. Well, Mr. Fennell, if you'll make a motion to table.
I move to table item 2014-034, that's zoning request Z14-003, to June 2nd at the request of the applicant.
I have a motion second to table to June the 2nd. All those in favor of the motion, please vote. Approved 6-0. Item C, also related to this issue, is 2014-036. Mayor and Council granted sanitary sewer easement between the City of Smyrna and McLean Corporation, LLC, to allow the installation of a sanitary sewer piping for the proposed adjacent residential development. Table to June 2nd. Mr. Fennell.
Mr. Mayor, I move to table 2014-036, the companion piece of legislation relative to sewer attachment for the proposed project mentioned, to June 2nd, 2014.
Second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion? So, I'm waiting on one more. Six, that's approved 6-0. Item 5 is previous licenses. We have none. Item 6 is formal business. A is 2014-106, approval of Ward 1 appointment to the Tree Board. Tom Bartlett will complete the current term expired 12/31/2016. Ms. Melanie Pritchett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Tom Bartlett's been serving as the representative for Ward 1 for about the past 10 months, and tonight I want to officially appoint him to this position. He's done a great job. With that, I'm going to ask for approval of Ward 1 appointee to the Tree Board. Mr. Tom Bartlett will complete the current term to expire 12/31/2016. Tom and his family live in Argyle Estates, and that's off of Campbell Road, and that's my motion.
I have a motion. If I can get a second, we can move on. A motion second. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion? That's approved 6-0. Item 6B under formal business 2014-081, approval of FY14 budget amendments for staff merit increases, other employee benefits, maintenance, and improvements, and professional services. Mr. Taylor, the background, please.
Mr. Mayor, the title pretty much says exactly what's going on here. Staff is recommending a budget amendment in the amount of $479,463. This amendment is necessary to cover merit increases that were given to staff this year. Also, we gave a little bit more in holiday gift cards than we previously budgeted. We also have, let's see, that was an amount of $19,000 for the, so it's $188,000 for merit increases, $19,000 for the gift cards. And then we have $200,000 for improvement work that's been done around the city, and also $72,100 for professional services. Staff does recommend approval.
So, Ms. Terry Nolowich, who chairs the Finance and Administration Committee. Ms. Nolowich.
Yes, budget amendments are certainly not unprecedented. We have one of these every year. They are all items that were discussed by the council. Some of these are, things like upkeep. One of the things that we talked about as a council is when you are really trying to, like so many families have done for the past several years during the recession, when you are trying to keep everything going the way it needs to be going, sometimes there are things that you have to put aside for a little while, and knowing that you're going to need to address them eventually. And what we've been doing really is addressing a lot of these minor maintenance issues, painting, just freshening up things that had been put off, but now it's time to address them. And thankfully, we're able to address them. So that's a lot of what this amendment is. In addition to things like the bonuses and the merit raises that were also discussed at length by the council. So at this time, I would like to make a motion to approve item 4B. This is we're on 4, right? Yeah. No, I'm sorry. We're in 6B.
6B,
yeah. Sorry about that. I'm looking at my B, not my numbers. Item 6B, which is the approval of the FY 2014 budget amendments for staff merit increases, other employee benefits, maintenance and improvements, and professional services.
Second. A motion second to approve this budget amendment. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please vote. Let's approve 4-2. Let's see, with Ms. Wilkinson and Mr. Lineker opposing. Item 6C, 2014-080, approval of a vehicle replacement fund policy. Mr. Taylor, the background, please.
Mr. Mayor, this is actually approval of a policy to cover a new fund that we've created to help cover the cost of replacement vehicles. This particular policy establishes guidelines for replacement of vehicles and equipment for the city, such as that would be heavy equipment, such as bulldozers and things of the nature. And then this criteria would be utilized by the Finance Department to develop a funding stream for this vehicle replacement fund to fund current and future vehicle and equipment needs. Staff recommends approval.
Ms. Terry Nolowich, who chairs the Finance and Administration Committee. Ms. Nolowich.
Thank you, sir. Yes, there's not much that I can add to that assessment that Mr. Taylor just gave. And at this time, I would like to move to approve item 6C, item 2014-080, approval of the vehicle replacement fund policy.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please vote. It's approved 6-0. Item D, 6D is 2014-079, approval of an asset management policy.
Yes,
Taylor, the background.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. This is another new financial policy that staff would recommend approving. This particular policy provides guidelines for the recording of city assets, sets the capitalization and tracking threshold for city assets, and establishes guidelines for the transfer or disposition of assets. And we do recommend approval.
Ms. Terry Nolowich, who chairs the Finance and Administration Committee.
Yes, thank you. I think that covers it. And I want to take a second right now to thank the Finance Department for the work that they have done in putting together these policies and working out all of the nuances of these policies and for bringing this forward. And I'd like to move to approve at this time item 6D, item 2014-079, the approval of the asset management policy.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, that's approved 6-0. Item 6E, formal business, is ordinance 2014-03, approval of the amendment to the City of Smyrna Code of Ordinances, Chapter 46, entitled Environment, to include Section 46-8, which prohibits smoking within the city-owned facilities and parks property. As I mentioned earlier, this is going to be tabled. Ms. Terry Nolowich, if you'll handle that.
I certainly will. I'm going to go ahead and make a motion tonight to table this. This is something that the council has been discussing informally since November of 2013. We've been talking about this at a more formal level since February. We've had staff draft several iterations of this policy at our direction. It was done at council's direction. And where we are now is basically determining where the designated areas are going to be. Designated areas have been a part of the past several drafts of this ordinance, and there will be a place for people who choose to smoke where they can go and smoke and hopefully not bother non-smokers. That's only going to be necessary in certain parks. A lot of parks are small enough that the designated area can be the right-of-way, which is exempt from the policy. For example, if you're in a pocket park, you can go to the sidewalk, which is city right-of-way, and smoke if that's something that you choose to do. So I'm going to go ahead and, in order to give staff ample time to determine which parks are large enough to merit a designated area, and also then give council additional time to further discuss any nuances regarding these designated areas. Hopefully on May 19th, we will look at this again, and I expect nothing less than everyone voting their conscience on this issue. And with that, I do move to table this item. It is item 6E. It's ordinance 2014-03.
Second.
That's to May the 19th.
Yes.
A motion second to table to May the 19th. All those in favor of the motion? That's approved 6-0. Item 6F under formal business is Resolution 2014-07. Authorize a resolution and declaration of taking of 2,419 square feet of temporary construction easement at 2766 Stone Creek Road for the Belmont Hills Sanitary Sewer Rehabilitation Project. That's going to be tabled to the 19th. Is that correct?
Yes.
Ms. Susan Wilkinson.
So I'd like to make a move to table this item 6F, RES 2014-01, authorize a resolution and declaration of taking of 2,419 square feet of temporary construction easement at 2766 Stone Creek Road for the Belmont Hills Sanitary Sewer Rehabilitation Project. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, table it to May 19th.
Second.
Have motion second table to May 19th. All those in favor of the motion, please vote. That's approved 6-0. Item 6G under formal business, Resolution 2014-08, authorize a resolution declaration of taking of 2,853 square feet of temporary construction easement at 2756 Stone Creek Road for the Belmont Hills Sanitary Sewer Rehabilitation Project. Anything you need to add to that, Mr. Taylor?
Not really, other than just a brief explanation that this is a temporary construction easement as the city is working to replace 10,000 feet of sanitary sewer main that will lead to a 50% increase in sewer capacity. This staff does recommend approval.
Miss Susan Wilkinson.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to approve item 6G, RES 2014-08 for the resolution and declaration of taking of 2,853 square feet of temporary construction easement at 2756 Stone Creek Road for the Belmont Hills Sanitary Sewer Rehabilitation Project.
Motion second. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please vote. It's approved 6-0. Item 6H under formal business, AGR 2014-01, approval of a HUT license agreement between the City of Smyrna and Google Fiber. Mr. Taylor, the background.
Mr. Mayor, I think as most folks know by now, the city is conducting a feasibility study for the expansion of Google Fiber into the City of Smyrna. With this potential expansion, Google Fiber could be looking to place fiber utility huts on city-owned property. And this particular agreement will help govern this placement should Google Fiber elect to expand into the city and look to place one of these huts on city property. Staff recommends approval.
Move to approve, Mr. Mayor.
I have a motion and a second to approve this license agreement. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please vote. Come on, got one more. Approved 6-0. Item 6H, AGR 2014-02, approval of a non-disclosure agreement between the City of Smyrna and Google Fiber. Mr. Taylor, the background.
Mr. Mayor, this one is also an agreement between the city and Google Fiber. This particular agreement is some of the information that Google Fiber is requesting is sensitive in terms of how it can be used, and to hopefully prevent some sensitive data from appearing on Google Earth or some other Google program in the future. This agreement will set expectations for how Google Fiber will not disclose any information that the city considers sensitive, and we do recommend approval on this one.
Move approval.
Motion is second. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please vote. It's approved 6-0. Item 7 is commercial building permits. We have none. Item 8 is consent agenda. Mr. Taylor, will you please read the consent agenda for council's approval?
Certainly. We have 7 items on the consent agenda this evening. Item 8 is the approval of the April 7, 2014 mayor and council meeting minutes. Item B is the approval of the property liability insurance renewal with the Georgia Local Government Risk Management Agency, also known as GERMA, and authorize the mayor to execute any related documents. Item C is an approval to renew advanced disposal commercial sanitation contract from March 1st, 2015 to February 28th, 2020. That one should also say authorize the mayor to execute any related documents. Item D is an approval of the 2014 CDBG subrecipient agreement between Cobb County and the City of Smyrna for use of the Community Development Block Grant funds in the amount of $225,840, and authorize the mayor to sign and execute on the agreement. Item E is an approval of the FY13 Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant for the Bike Patrol and Accident Investigation Surveying Equipment in the amount of $17,847 awarded to the Smyrna Police Department. Item F is an approval to allow the Georgia Municipal Association through Penn Credit Corporation to collect on past due water bills and authorize the mayor to sign all necessary documents. And the final item is an approval of Stormwater Management BMP Facilities Covenant Agreement template for the City of Smyrna, and to authorize the city engineer to sign any agreements on behalf of the city.
Hear motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Motion is second. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please vote. 6-0. Committee reports. We'll start tonight with Ms. Melanie Pritchett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You're welcome.
I appreciate that. My report has to do with the Vision Committee. We had our steering committee first meeting last Monday, and we're kicking off the survey for all the citizens to, if you want to have your input on what you'd like to see in the city for the next 10 years, you can go to smyrnavision.com, and it will tell you the different phases that we're going through and explain the process to you. There's also a button on the right-hand side to take the survey, and the survey takes 10 to 15 minutes depending on how many comments you want to make. We want to encourage everybody to take part in this, because the more citizens' ideas that we can get, the better we will all be. So if the Vision Committee, Ms. Anulowitz and Mr. Fennell have anything they want to say, please feel free. And smyrnavision.com. If you have a business in Smyrna, if you live in Smyrna, you have family that live in Smyrna, please do and vote and tell us what you'd like to see in the next 10 years. And with that, I yield, Mr. Mayor.
Ms. Terry Nulowich.
Thank you, sir. Finance does not have a report tonight, but I would like to invite Jennifer Bennett to come forward to give an update from Community Relations.
Good evening. Thank you. It's here, Festival Week, and the Jonquil City Jog. Saturday, April 26th at 8 o'clock, you'll see a lot of runners going down Atlanta Road. Please be patient. They are helping us raise money for education, the Campbell High School Education Foundation, and they're enjoying their community. You can sign up online at active.com. You can also sign up at the community center this week. Registration is generally open through Thursday. Jonquil Festival is also Saturday and Sunday. Saturday it starts at 10 and runs until 6 o'clock, and Sunday is noon to 6. The weather should be fabulous. You can learn about all of these from your water bill. We put the event calendar in there, and you can go to smyrnacity.com. And as always, we want you to be involved in our community even more. And as Councilwoman Pritchett said, please participate in the online survey for the vision process. And you go to smyrnavision.com and follow the link. We've also been pushing that out on social media. I keep urging people to follow us on Facebook. It's a great way to stay on top of everything that we're doing. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll also take the opportunity to remind everyone to go to smyrnavision.com and complete the brief survey. Share your thoughts on our city. The vision process, it's not a comprehensive plan. It's not a land use plan. It's not a zoning plan. It is what this community envisions for our city 10 years down the road. We're going to have an actionable plan that we will be able to work with when this process is complete. So tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell people in organizations that you're in to take the survey. If you've heard about the survey from the PTA and from the city's Facebook page and from your HOA, that's a good thing. We want to get as much saturation as possible and have as many residents and stakeholders take the survey as we can. And I hope everyone has a wonderful weekend. There's a lot going on, and be safe, watch for runners, and with that, I yield.
Well, Ms. Susan Wilkinson.
Mary Moore from the library couldn't be with us tonight due to being out on training, but she asked me to make a couple of announcements for the library. There's going to be a first Sunday lecture in May, and it will feature archaeologist Scott Butler from Brockingham and Associates. Mr. Butler was involved with the cataloging and curating of the City of Smyrna's Civil War artifact collection, and he will speak at the Smyrna Library on Sunday, May 4th at 3 p.m. about his survey work on the Chattahoochee River line battlefield. And then on Tuesday, May 13th, Smyrna's new fire chief, Paige Day, will speak at the library about her family's recovery. This is about a book, so she's the author that's going to appear. And this is about her book on her family's recovery following her husband's traumatic accident and brain injury. So Chief Day is the author of the memoir Fading Scars, and she will speak at 10:30 a.m. on Tuesday, May 13th. And with that, I'd like to ask Steve Ciaccio to come give us a report for the Parks and Recreation Department.
Thank you. Jennifer referred to her special event calendar, Smyrna Events 2014. One of the neat things we do in Smyrna is have an Arthur Bacon golf tournament over at Fox Creek. That is on Saturday, May 3 and Sunday, May 4. This annual championship with the mayor is a great way to mix business and fun. Applications will be over at the community center. I think they're at the library as well. And please call Smyrna Parks and Recreation at 770-431-2842. That function is at Fox Creek Golf and right next door at the Links. So it's a wonderful way to participate in your community. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. And with that, I yield.
Wade, if you just let me go back to Ms. Pritchett was going to, Mr. Welch had to leave. I think Ann Kirk and Scott Stokes can do their report, and then we'll get to you.
Mr. Stokes, will you come forward and give us a report? Public Works Director.
I don't really have a report, but today we had Public Works had a terrible automobile accident, if y'all heard about it. I know it was 7 o'clock this afternoon. The employees in the hospital, they're just checking, running tests on him, make sure everything's okay, but nobody was hurt. He wasn't hurt really, other than, trying to evaluate maybe if something happened while he was driving a fully loaded dump truck and he totaled the truck, but there again, nobody was hurt. He's fine, and it's just a miracle nobody was hurt because he crossed several lanes of traffic and ended up in a neighborhood. So just want to give you guys an update on that employee. Thanks.
Thank you, Scott.
Miss Ann Kirk, keep Smyrna beautiful.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to remind everybody that tickets will go on sale this weekend for our garden tour. This is our 6th annual Keep Smyrna Beautiful garden tour. We have 4 private homes and the Delmar Gardens Rose Garden on the tour, in addition to the tea room, which we will have live music and great food. The tickets are only $10. That is before the event, and the day of the event they'll be $15. This is on May 17th. From 10 a.m. until 4 p.m., rain or shine. It makes a great Mother's Day gift, and we hope that everyone will come out and support this. All the funds are directed right back into the community, either for planting trees or other environmental projects that we have going on. And I'd like to thank all of the 200 volunteers and board members that came out last weekend for the Great American Cleanup. I understand they were out in full force, very visible, and cleaned over 35 miles of roadway. So thank you very much to everyone that participated. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mr. Wade Lenico.
I have something I wanted to speak for Andrea Bluestein. Councilwoman Bluestein is not here tonight, but she wanted to she asked me to let her folks know that she's having a community meeting for Ward 2 on April the 30th at Taylor Bronner Hall, and it's going to be at 6:30. That's on a Wednesday night, April 30th at 6:30 for Ward 2 residents. Thank you.
Mr. Wade Lenico.
Thank you, Your Honor. I know our HR Director, Kay Bolick, has no report this evening, so she gets off scot-free. City Clerk Terry Graham, do you have any report tonight? I do want to thank our Deputy City Clerk, Lisa Moore, who filled in for me last Thursday night with the Vinings Forest HOA, allowed them to meet here at City Hall for their annual meeting. Unfortunately, I was sick and not able to be here, and at the last minute she stepped up, and Lisa, I appreciate you being willing to do that for me. Thank you. And I know the residents appreciated being able to meet as well. I hated to miss that meeting. I always enjoy being in front of the residents of Ward 6. Get to do that on Sunday, May 4th with the Vinings Glen when they have their annual HOA meeting. I want to extend my sympathies to the Bartow family of Smyrna. The father, Jim Bartow, passed away several weeks ago. His son is a player I coach on the Campbell High School lacrosse team. Jim Bartow was a longtime employee of the Hilton Corporation and worked in sales at the Hilton in Atlanta on Cortlandt Street. We're all familiar with that from many training sessions that the Georgia Municipal Association has there and has had there for many, many years. The Hilton Corporation, I got to say, did a very nice memorial service and reception for the family and the lacrosse team from Campbell and the soccer team, and many Smyrna residents, neighbors, and friends were there, and it was a great turnout. Appreciated the Hilton Corporation doing that, and of course I extend my condolences to the family, and we'll do everything we can to watch out for them and care for them. I do also want to acknowledge the oldest daughter of my seatmate, Councilwoman Susan Wilkinson. Her daughter Alexis was on the program yesterday at Smyrna First United Methodist Church in the first morning service to provide an inspirational thought for the congregation. I know Susan and Doward and their family are very proud of their daughter, and it's great to see her getting involved in the community at such a young age, high school student. Finally, Your Honor, I just would note for your alma mater's lacrosse team, the first 4 years of their existence, they won one game a year. They were one in whatever each of those years. Total of 4 games in 4 years. This season, I'm proud to report they have now won 5 games. So they're making history, doing well. The kids are excited, and I couldn't have been more proud of them last Friday night when they played River Ridge in the rain. If you remember Friday night, it was cold, it was wet, it was ugly, and the Campbell kids played it the best game of their life. And again, I'm so proud of each and every one of them. There were a lot of parents that sat there in the rain to support their kids, and the team manager sat there in the rain to be a part of the team, and everything came together. It's been a real privilege to work with them. With that, I yield.
I'll say this, that I actually look every day in the newspaper sports section to see if the lacrosse team has won. And I don't know how you play it, but I have actually seen Councilmember Lineker out there. I guess you're coaching them or something. You have a hat on and you're walking around. So you are there. So congratulations. That's a great season. Mr. Ron Fennell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to call up Smyrna's fire chief, Paige Day, to see if she has any words of wisdom and update for the city. By the way, if not already, a soon-to-be Smyrna homeowner. I'm proud for her. Will be in Ward 7 for a short while.
That's right. Mayor and Council, thank you for the opportunity to speak in front of you this evening. I have some exciting news. It's been a big week for Smyrna Fire Department. We participated with the Atlanta Climb, the Climb for Atlanta, for the American Lung Association. As a team, we raised funds for our team and for research for the Lung Association, and we also climbed up 51 stories in full turnout gear. And I actually participated, and I made it. So it was a great team effort, and I'm proud of everybody who was part of that. We've kicked off some really great community programs that I'm so excited to share with you. This past week, the firefighters, what they've done is each station has adopted an elementary school. And so what they have partnered with Cobb County School District, and the principals are very excited about this. What they do is they award the best class, the students that have the best citizenship, best behavior, scholastic achievement, whether it's improvement or grades, and then they get to have lunch with the firefighters. So we had our first lunch with the firefighters, and it was so successful, and the little boys all wore ties, and the girls were dressed in their business attire because it was a business lunch. And it's a great program to build mentorship, relationships, and get involved in the community. We anticipate this growing into broader programs as this goes on. A little safety tip for everyone, spring is here. So when you are cleaning, doing your spring cleaning, think about your AC units as well. If you want, it's a good idea to get them professionally inspected. It's also a good idea to change your filters because that is a fire hazard. So think about that. And thank you so much for your time. Does anyone have any questions for me? My legs are still a little sore, so I'm doing good. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Chief Lee, while he's coming up, I want to note the Smyrna Public Safety Foundation extended an offer for me to join that panel where these two fine public servants and others are involved, and it's an honor to join that group, and I appreciate that. Chief?
Thank you. This upcoming Jonquil jog, we've got about 20 members and family members that will be out there. We were able to get some team T-shirts made up. So although you'll see me at the rear of the pack, I'm sure. But I will be out there. I know I sent you all some email earlier about recently our Leads Online program that deals with pawn shops and that. We've made our first arrest off of it. We recovered a couple of stolen items that they'd pawned outside the city, and it showed up.
Nice.
So that it's already starting to pay off. So we're real happy, and once again, we appreciate your support in helping us get that passed. We have a new communication officer who she's joined us from Florida. She worked 22 years for the Orange County, Florida Sheriff's Office. And she brings a lot of experience, and we're hoping to utilize a lot of the training that she's received there. I want to remind everybody this Thursday we're starting our second gun safety class, and we still have some positions open. If somebody wants to join, they can get on the city's website and register for it. It's this Thursday from 7 to 9 at the right here in the City Council chambers. Our honor guard was selected to give the 21 gun salute this year at the Cobb County Peace Officer Memorial Service. If you've never attended one of these, they're on the Marietta Square this year. Be on Thursday, May 22nd at 7:30. It's a pretty moving event. We have public safety from throughout all of Cobb County. They have a candlelight thing, and of course you also see all the blue lights and that surrounding the square. It's a pretty awesome event.
7:30 p.m.
Yes, sir. One other thing, one of our detectives, Meredith Ramali, she's been appointed by Governor Deal to be a member of the Child Welfare Reform Council. This is a new council that was recently created to improve our child welfare system and to better protect Georgia's most vulnerable citizens. And she is the only law enforcement person on that new committee. With that, any questions?
We'll see you Saturday morning.
Yes, sir. We're hoping there'll be donuts at the end of it. You know, it's kind of like a
Kenny's Key Lime Pie.
Kenny's Key. Hey, that's even better.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Lee. Chief Lee and I serve on another board called Team Georgia, which is a statewide safe and sober driving coalition. And we lost one of our founding partners and a friend of mine of over 20 years in Captain Herb Emery this past weekend, 10 days ago now. He was doing what he always does. He went out to help a motorist who had encountered a problem near his home. And he went out to render assistance, did so, calmed all parties involved. As he was walking away from the scene, he collapsed of a massive heart attack and did not recover. Herb was only 61 years old. He did an awful lot of things in the community. And the reason I bring it up, not just because he's a good friend of mine, but he loved law enforcement, and public safety was his number one outreach besides kids. And there are two things that you can't get better than looking out for either of those categories of work in your life. And I'm proud to have known him, and I'm sad to have lost him. I'll always remember him, but he had a connection to Smyrna that a lot of people don't know. He bought his engagement ring to Karen, and he ended up buying the wedding ring from D. Geller & Sons right here in Smyrna. He loved Smyrna. He had an affinity for it. We had him occasionally come visit one or more of the functions in town, and he will be sorely missed as a larger-than-life individual. If you never met him and you just heard his voice on the radio, you'll never forget that. But he was a prince of a guy outside of it. And as he reminded me about 3 weeks ago when we went to an event, and I called and asked him to go with him, and he said, "You sure you need me to go, Ron? You know I got a face for radio." And that self-deprecating style of his was endearing to almost everybody who had a chance to get to know him. With that, I want to remind the citizens around the North Cooper Lake Road area the application that has been put off until the first meeting in June. I assured the residents there that once a new application were one to be submitted would come forward, that we would meet as we did before with the staff at Bronner Hall to make sure everybody could hear from the developer, look at the new proposal if there is one. There may not be one, and allow for some citizen input. That'll probably be sometime toward the end of May. We have a couple of meetings between now and then to be able to articulate that, but I just wanted to remind those who may be paying attention to it that that's coming. And then finally, tomorrow night at 7:30 p.m. is my quarterly town hall meeting. We'll be meeting at Jim and Nick's, South Cobb Drive at the Silver Comet Parkway. No, that's still called the East-West Connector. Dang it. We're working on it. But I would love to see any and all of the residents of Ward 7 or anybody else in Smyrna that wants to pop by and ask questions. We're going to give some updates. And for those on the south part of town that haven't yet met our fire chief, she's graciously agreed to join us that night. And I think we might even have some barbecue while we're there. So with that, Mr. Mayor, I yield.
Mr. Eric Taylor.
Yeah, I just want to mention briefly We've mentioned several times the fact that Smyrna is in running for Google Fiber with the monumental task of having to come up with all this information that they've requested in the span of about 2 months. But what I wanted to do is publicly recognize all the folks who have put in a lot of time on this. It's been as I said, a monumental task that's required meeting for at least a couple hours every week, not to mention all the time it takes to actually gather all the information. So with that, I want to publicly acknowledge and thank Ken Sudreth, Jared Sigmund, Jennifer Bennett, Eric Randall, Scott Stokes, Chris Addicks, Katie Roper, and Scott Cochran for the work they put on this. That's it.
Mr. Scott Cochran, anything? Mr. Terry Graham, I know you've had an opportunity, but nothing. Show cause hearing, we have none. Citizens input, we've got 2 folks that signed up. Robin Cubbage, 275 Doeskin Trail, conditions of Deerwood Roads. Is she here?
Mayor Bacon and Council, I want to apologize first. I feel like I'm kind of wasting your time by coming with this, but I'm not getting any results. I've spoken with Frank Martin once. I've called him 4 times. I've had 2 promises of repair, but nothing has happened, no return calls. I've called the city administrator's office, and I've sent our mayor pictures of the condition of our roads, and I haven't heard back from anybody yet. The roads are in terrible disarray. First, they're covered with cracks, but that's really not my biggest concern. The biggest concern is that they recently came in and, well, actually, it's probably been 2 months now, removed, I guess, the manhole covers. And when they first tried to repair them, it was like just dirt and rocks. The rocks have now spread all over the roads. They did come in and do what I would call a half-hearted attempt with some asphalt. And it's just a patch job. They're gapping holes. They're not even. The rocks are everywhere. I personally run through the neighborhood, and I almost tripped when I hit stepped on one of the rocks. We have older folks who walk, and, I've had conversations with them. They're worried about tripping on them. So, not only does it look bad, it's a danger, and if anybody's interested, I can show you pictures.
If you have time, when we're finished in about 2 minutes, our Public Works Director, Mr. Taylor, will talk to you and figure out where we are with it.
Okay.
I'm sorry I didn't catch the address or the area.
I live in Deerwood, and I live at 275 Doeskin Trail.
And Mr. Fennell will hang out. He's the council member.
First time I'm hearing about it. That's why I'm baffled.
And I'll mention that our neighboring neighborhood does not have these issues.
Yeah. Well, it's the first time I'm hearing about it. I'm happy to.
Well, I've been calling city employees and not getting anywhere, and so then I saw this meeting was tonight. I decided I would just.
Well, thank you for being here, and thank you for bringing it to our attention. I appreciate it.
And I'll stay a couple minutes after the meeting. Thank you.
I think our second speaker is Ms. Glover. She's gone, though, I think. She spoke earlier about the Kingsview Drive. Just want to thank the 3 candidates. I always try to do this. If they stay for the whole meeting, I try to recognize them and say, what are y'all still doing here? Ann Harris, who is a candidate for a Cobb Superior Court judge. Jeff Abel, candidate for Cobb County School Board. Susan Thayer, Cobb County School Board. Thank y'all for staying. It's amazing. If there's no other business to be brought before this body, I declare this meeting adjourned at 9:30.